Alex exposed the deep malaise at the heart of Manchester United, and talking about that call that Fletcher made, he says when Fletcher tapped Ferguson's number on his phone screen, the call travelled across all the waste of the last 13 years to the genius behind 13 Premier League titles, 5 FA Cups and 2 Champions Leagues. It resurrected the principle that Ferguson might have something useful to say about what should happen next, and he did by articulating something the Glazers and parts of the INEOS ownership don't understand. The job now, is what he said to Darren Fletcher, is to do what's best for Manchester United. What Manchester United are doing at the moment is bringing in an interim in Darren Fletcher, talking about bringing another interim after Darren Fletcher before appointing a permanent manager in the summer. Is that what is best for Manchester United?
Yeah, definitely. Also, it gives them the kind of space to actually think about this clearly, which I think really is required. I mean, I think one of the biggest issues of modern Manchester United, and this feeds into a lot of themes of the show today, I think they've got to decide what they actually want to look like as a club. And I mean, like in terms of, especially with one that is so obsessed with identity, it doesn't really have a football identity. And if you pick one, and this is essential in modern football, then everything flows from that. And that was one of the issues of the Interim appointment, that really in the summer of 2024, and there is context for this because the new leadership was coming in, key figures weren't in place, but in the summer of 2024, they really should have taken it almost as starting from scratch and thinking about what do we want this team to look out. Instead, they ended up, I suppose, clumsily persisting with Ten Hag for some justifiable reasons, and then going for Interim, who's probably more wedded to a specific style than any modern coach, which kind of goes against that sort of best practice that we're talking about. And just like Sam touches on this in the piece there, or at least kind of, I think this is a bit of what he's getting at. I think where the Ferguson thing is significant, I suppose, it's not about his influence, because I mean, I think compared to Busby, as Jonathan was saying, Busby was this almost ferocious presence there, even if it was kind of implicit. Whereas Ferguson by contract, it almost feels like he's kind of a cuddlier figure in retirement than he...
Busby had the office in the stadium. The manager could literally know that Samat's sitting two or three doors down.
And just on the kind of, I suppose, where the phone call is significant is because, you know, as a colleague said to me during the week, I won't out him, but he said, what would have happened if Ferguson said no?
Not for you, Darren.
Yeah, like, I mean, which kind of shows a little bit the absurdity of this. And it's like, United are now in a position, and this is where there are echoes of kind of the 17 years between Busby, where they're looking for the next Messiah. Or the next, and there's almost biblical themes to it.
Weekend, I mean, especially since they don't have Europe, a tasty cup run could light a bit of a fire on the Manchester United season, couldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think if you can win a trophy in a season where you're not doing brilliantly well, or you're in a transition and you're not going to win the league, which they're quite clearly not, I would never say that's a bad season when you win a trophy. I think it's about the direction of the club, it's about the progression on the pitch, it's about the plan and where it's going, and I think that's what needs to be put into place. And it does look like that's going to be put off again for another 4 or 5 months, doesn't it? In the sense that it does look like all roads are pointing towards a temporary manager coming in, which I don't disagree with, because if they can get a Ancelotti or a Tuchel at the end of the season, a manager of that ilk or that stature, then you'd wait for them. You would wait for them, and you'd take the risk of having an interim manager who's going to try and get you over the line and get you into Europe for the rest of this season. But they have to make sure that I think they get that type of manager at the end of the season if they're going to wait. Because the risk of obviously putting an interim in is, I mean, look, they've done it twice in the last, whatever it is, 10, 12 years. And it's worked with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, it didn't work with Rangnick. So probably why they're talking to Ollie again, probably why they're talking to Michael Carrick, Ruud van Nistelrooy as well as being mentioned. So be interesting to see which one of those they go for. And there'll be a level of emotion with those players coming back in. And I just hope there is some stability towards the end of the season that allows a new manager to come in. Because it's been disappointing. It really has.
Simply because I think there is a chance that Iraola's football scales higher. It scales better at a bigger club, right? When you look at how most elite football clubs or clubs that have elite aspirations want to play, it is more often than not in the Iraola fashion rather than the Glasner fashion. I think Glasner's done a fantastic job at Palace, and in fact, he's doing a better job this season than Iraola is. But I just don't know if his football can scale correctly at a Man United or at a Liverpool or at a Manchester City. Whereas Iraola, who has had his issues this season, I look when his football is really at its free-flowing best. It is an absolute joy to watch. It's very modern, in my opinion, in terms of when you're talking about the press, when you're talking about the passing out from the back, when you're talking about how high intensity it is. And I have to give him some credit as well, too. Despite the poor run of form that they were on this season, previous to beating you guys, of course.
Thanks, mate.
You have to take into consideration as well, too, that when he had his side last season, before it was decimated in the transfer window, these guys were one of the most entertaining teams in the league. They were going to the big six grounds and winning left, right, and center. They beat United 3-0, I think 2 seasons in a row or something like that. They were a joy to watch. So,
your fourth pick, who you gone with?
Again, all of these guys carry their own uncertainties. And De Zerbi, I could almost definitely see it one day ending in tears, because this is, in my opinion, one of the most volatile managers in the game. He is of the Antonio Conte mold. However, I think one thing is undeniable. This guy is an elite coach. Right? When it comes to the X's and O's, when it comes to setting your team up, I think this guy's track record, the amount of people that have vouched for him as being as innovative when it comes to building out from the back, and again, playing a style of football that can just wow you, I think he's unquestionable. Like, the way Guardiola has raved about this guy and said how many times he's taken inspiration in terms of his tactics, it is sensational. I think, again, the only question with De Zerbi is, when is he going to just, like, explode, right? When is he going to fall out with somebody? Even at Marseille last season, I think he threatened to quit 3 months into the job. But there is no question, when this guy can get his team clicking, they are one of the most exciting watches in football. And he's had a very successful time at Marseille as well, too. Brighton, at one point, they were everybody's favorite team outside of the top 6, playing some fantastic football. Develops players quite well as well, too.
Pretty sure led them to the highest ever finish.
Got them to an FA Cup semi-final as well, too.
Unlucky to lose.
And that team played some honestly, some of the best football you will have seen in the league at that point.
Let's go to number 3 on your list then. And this is where we start to enter World Cup territory, potentially? With
I think it's where we start to enter world-class territory as well, too.
And this goes back to what you were saying, listening to Ornstein, about the level of manager you think will become available after the World Cup.
100%. This is my first real, like, okay, everyone has uncertainties, but now I'm starting to get a little bit more certain. Julian Nagelsmann. Now, I think his reputation, for some reason, has been a little bit smeared since he left Bayern Munich. But I don't really understand why. His win rate there was fantastic, over 70%. Yeah. And people will say, oh, it's Bayern. Of course it is. But I think it's very important to take context into account here. That Bayern team was coming towards the end of their dynasty, and it showed when Tuchel came in, and they narrowly won the league the next season on the final day, and then got smoked in the league the following season against Leverkusen. And really, Kompany came in and has aided this rebuild of Bayern and to bring them back to the top of European football. But I think this was a Bayern team that were on the decline, and he still managed fantastic results. That's one thing. He's managed at a big club. He's got experience working in a high-pressure environment. Bayern is as big as it gets in European football. Then you look at the style of play as well, too. I think since he broke onto the scene, whether it was with Hoffenheim, then with Leipzig, now with Bayern Munich as well, too, in the German national team, he has always been known for an exciting, progressive, modern style of play. In terms of the press, he's always been known for that. The build-up, the style, the goals they score. I think this guy right here, you talk about the United way, the United DNA, I think this is the kind of football that Man United fans would want to see. There you go.
Who have you got at 2, Lias?
Thomas Tuchel. And I actually think it's the most likely appointment.
Do you?
My prediction is that I think Thomas Tuchel, post-World Cup, will no longer be England manager. Whether that's he's lost at the tournament and maybe decided that, look, I've taken this group where I can. I only signed to the World Cup anyways. Or he wins the whole thing and he goes out a national hero and it's like, okay, I'm one and done and I'm out of here.
So whatever happens to England,
my prediction is
Thomas Tuchel will no longer be England manager?
And I would even go one step further. I think Eddie Howe will be the manager of England. So I think that's kind of where the footballing world is kind of. I think Eddie Howe by this time next year will be England manager, and I think Thomas Tuchel will be a free man. Now, if you cast your mind back to when INEOS first took over at Man United, this was Jim Ratcliffe's favorite guy. This was his guy that he wanted at the helm. He had just left Bayern Munich. Eric Ten Hag was on the ropes. He interviewed him first and foremost. And he told him, I'm looking to take a break post-management, which is eventually why we went to other candidates and then stuck with Ten Hag. But I think if Ratcliffe had his way, this would have been the Man United manager. And who knows what the situation looks like. But again, you're talking about prestige, pedigree, experience, winning. This guy ticks. This is a bona fide world-class manager. And he's shown as well, too. He can come into groups, into teams where you think it's a bit disjointed. Quaker will tell you himself, what he did at Chelsea is to this day, for me, remarkable when you look at how that club was being run at the time. I'm allowed to dream here, right? This is a show. Luis Enrique, I think, again, an unquestionable world-class manager, one who's shown that, again, he can also work with a sporting director, working side by side with Luis Campos at PSG. But again, when you're talking about what you want to see from a Man United side, pressing from the front, intensity, good passing movement, good play, attacking, positive.
Appreciation of midfield.
And appreciate, that's something, any of these nominees I just put forward, they need to address the midfield first and foremost. and I'm talking about ball players, I'm not talking about ball winners. He's just a world-class manager, maybe even arguably the best manager in the world over the last 12, 18 months.
Can you see that happening? Obviously, the pool of Manchester United is huge, one of the biggest clubs in the world.
Yeah.
There'll be a host of names that want to go to Man United, of course they will. Yeah. But the job that he's doing now is he's managing one of the best teams in world football. He's got an amazing gig where he's at PSG. Can you see that move happening?
Yeah, I can. I actually can. His contract runs until 2027.
Yeah.
I can see it happening because Manchester United still have that pull. It's still Manchester United.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he's a manager that has done things his own way. And I think he's definitely been validated with the job that he's done at PSG. I feel like when he won the treble at Barcelona, there was a feeling of you've got the best players in the world. You've got MSN. But the job he did at PSG with no real standout superstars has validated him as a manager. Style of play, check. Mentality, personality, check. It's whether he wants to come to Manchester United that are in flux right now. But if you can get him, yeah, he's the best option out of all those 5 managers.
OK, so that's who you want, Luis Enrique. Who do you think it will be?
Honestly, Thomas Tuchel. I think Thomas Tuchel will be Man United manager at the start of next season.
Sir Alex Ferguson breaks silence on Manchester United's endless scandals and chaos. Fergie reveals the shocking truth behind United, looking for their messiah, while Gary Neville calls for stability to end the cycle of managerial failures at Old Trafford. Watch Fergie's legendary insights on what's gone wrong since his era, Neville's plea for calm rebuilding, the endless manager carousel, INEOS impact, and how United can return to glory. Classic battle between stability versus savior complex.